refusals to drive. We have two categories there. What we call the actual violation clause. You're protected if you refuse to drive where the driving would result in an actual violation of the law. What do we know about lamps in the FMCSRs? 393.5, I think, all lamps required by this subpart shall be capable of being operated at all times. Now, this may sound like nitpicking, but a marker light, 1 in the 3 cluster, that's a violation, right? If you refuse to drive based on 1 marker light being out, you're protected. Now, that may not be the driver I want driving for me if I own a trucking company, but that is how extensive the protection it is. It does not have to be an out-of-service violation that you're refusing to violate. It has to be, you have to show that an actual violation would occur. That hot load, you're running over your, you're out on your 70, and you're a half hour away, and it's the best customer the company's got, and you shut down a half hour from the receiver, you're legally protected for refusing to drive in violation of a DOT regulation. Now, there's a couple things that are a little more nuanced protections we've got. We've got a rule that says no driver shall drive when his ability or alertness are so impaired due to illness, fatigue, or some other causes to make it unsafe to drive, right? The fatigue rule, 392.3. Now, the law, a lot of people say it's against the law for me to drive while I'm fatigued. No, the regulation does not say that. It says it has to rise to the level of it being unsafe or likely to become unsafe that you are protected due to retaliation, due to illness or fatigue. So there's one thing you want to do if you're going to exercise your rights under this law is clearly communicate to the employer the nature of the basis for your refusal. So, dispatcher says, hey Chris, I want you to take this load out tonight. It's got to be in Tucumcari day after tomorrow. Sam, I've been working here, my tail off, and I'm just wiped out. I'm really fatigued. And he fires you for it. Or somebody in safety or somewhere else does. Because it's a hot load. I love that term, hot loads. Kind of like the term illegal log. I said, you mean a falsified log, do you not? You're not protected most likely in that scenario because you haven't clearly communicated to the employer that this, it rises to the level of an impairment due to fatigue that it renders the driving unsafe or likely to become unsafe. I have a little disclaimer. Lawyers are great at disclaimers. Information deemed reliable but not guaranteed. Now, issues that in Illinois it is a felony to record somebody even if you're part of the conversation without obtaining their consent. I'll just tell you that. Well, that's it. I'm just telling you, it's a felony. So when I have Illinois-based drivers, I say, how far are you from the Indiana border? Or Wisconsin or Missouri. I mean, there's ways around that problem. Example of building a case is I get a lot of times drivers call me. I get drivers calls all, up till 11 at night, most nights. And a lot of times they're on the scene. Paul, what do I do? They're telling me to drive this truck, it's got this broken spring or whatever it is. What do I do? Well, that's the best time to get advice, is before something happens. It may never result in a case. I don't care if you call me at up till 11 at night, it's usually okay. You're not going to get a bill. But it's a matter of having proof. People say, my company's making me violate hours of service. I said, really, they're making you do it, or are you just doing it? So the idea then is to say, okay, do you have a tape recorder? No. Well, okay, go down the street to Walmart. Get yourself a little cheap tape recorder. What state are you in? I get my little list out. Just keep one of these at home. call them and say, you know, I know the load's hot. I'm not going to break hours of service. What do you want me to do? Get it there. Well, the only way I can get it there is if I drive all night and I'm already out on my 14. Get it there. You know, that's the kind of case you want to build. The other thing you all ought to have with you is a camera. You know, I can tell you right now, there's no regulation require preservation of Qualcomm records. I've tried to get them with subpoena, and the answer from Qualcomm is that the carrier programs it, how soon they want them wiped out. I know of carriers that have Qualcomms being destroyed in 2 days. You know, bad weather is one of those things where a driver is required to use judgment. And I talked about, and I've taken a trial of about 5 weather-related work refusals. Lost one, and that's because the driver never left home. I would tell you, if you're going to refuse to drive due to bad weather, don't be sitting at home when you do it. And make sure, you know, that case was probably, well, I can't say too much sound appeal, so I don't want to say how good the case is. But if you're going to have a weather-related work refusal, have a real basis for doing it. There's a case cited in the material called Cynthia Ferguson versus New Prime, Inc. New Prime is known as Prime. It's like old Coke is now Coke, okay? Still the same old people. I'll just tell you a little bit about Ms. Ferguson. She was a Prime owner-operator, lease purchase type driver who she wasn't making a lot of money, and so they decided to make her a trainer and put a trainee with her, and ultimately she wouldn't drive in bad weather. But several of the things she did, she was able to articulate at a hearing why she refused to drive, to show to the court that she had a reasonable concern of safety due to the weather. 1, she talked to other drivers. Now, it'd be better to get their names. 2, she watched the television broadcast reports. 3, she actually made some attempts, had been recently driving in what was some pretty bad weather. So if you're going to have a weather-related work refusal, do those things. And as soon as you can, you know, if you get fired for refusing to drive due to bad weather, go pick up the newspapers and the internet reports about the storm. I mean, very important. The best cases, and I have some tips for winning cases, the best cases are the ones that you've documented. You got that camera, and the dispatcher is telling you, go around the scale. If you got an overweight load, that's protected too, refusing to drive overweight. You snap a picture. You got digital recorders. Yeah, you know, cell phones have phones on them, even my old one. So you want to make sure you have that kind of documentation. One quick thing about the tape recording, even in states where it may be legal, an employer can fire you for it, okay? They can say, we didn't like the fact that he was recording us, you know. They can at least, and they can have policies against recording. There's just one other thing, you know, I welcome calls, my number's on the material. I don't charge unless, you know, I ever win. So I've been called in some places lately that I'm a money-grubbing, bottom-feeder, dirty, ambulance-chasing attorney because I was looking for witnesses in a case against Prime. You know, which tells you the social media can be used for witnesses. I find experts on it. Just quickly, you know, lawsuits are not, this is a thing of last resort. You got a bad DAC report or whatever, these are things of last resort as a lawsuit. It's best to resolve stuff. I can tell you many times I brought cases for drivers. Drivers are my principal clients, and those drivers will, a lot of them, even when they win or get a fairly decent settlement, at least what I would view as a decent settlement, a lot of them wish they had never gone through it. So this is kind of like, hey, let's protect yourself now. But if you do get fired because you won't drive in violation of commercial vehicle safety regulation, there are laws that empower you, and I think it's important now more than ever with the CSA structure that's out there that you have to really protect yourself and have to refuse to violate these laws. You should, and you wouldn't, you know, as a lawyer, I wouldn't tell you to go out and violate them. But I think it's now more important than ever if you want to preserve your ability to be employed down the line is to refuse to break these laws, or you know, some commercial vehicle enforcement officer is going to fill out a nice little level 1 inspection, and now your CSA is toast. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here and to address you, and I'll be around, the rest of the evening if you have any questions, and thanks for listening.